Right, good morning to the USA. Good morning, America, as they say in the classics. Yeah, so trust you guys are well. It's good afternoon in the UK and in South Africa, SA. So all over the world. Today we talk about pacing, something that Ed's very good at, I think, because running ultra marathons across deserts, you probably have to pace yourself to some extent, I would imagine. So yeah. Ed, I'm gonna start the ball rolling with you this afternoon. Well, this afternoon. Depends what pace you're going at. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, that's interesting you should say that, because that's exactly what I was going to talk about. Because I think way back in, it might be 2013, 2014, I was asked to help this South African guy finish the race because he'd been a couple of years beforehand and he'd not finished. And it was a big deal for him for a whole host of reasons. But he was a very experienced runner. He'd run Comrades 19 times. And I think he'd done Two Oceans about 32 times or something. He was one of the most number of Two Oceans going. But of course, they're all single stage races. And they're all ones where he trained with his club and worked with his club. And no one had the experience of pacing. And the great thing about something like Comrades or Two Oceans, you can collapse in a big heap over the finish line and it doesn't matter because you've got the rest of the year to recover. But on a multi-stage race, you've got to go the next day. And that's the issue the guy had. And so I was given this task of getting the guy to the end, and I didn't know that much about him. I didn't know how much in a reserve he had. I didn't know. I knew he was a tough guy, but I didn't know. So I started off very conservatively, just because I knew the previous time he'd got to day 3 and just collapsed. So I knew I had to get him past that mental hurdle of day 3. And then, of course, on day 4, you have the long day, when you go through the night as well. And I thought, well, he'd never experienced that before, so that will be an issue. So I took it very conservatively. And I think that's the secret of life, isn't it? During the COVID crisis, we don't know how long it's going to last. So I think you've got to save something in the tank. And on the last day of that event, well, I knew it didn't matter if I emptied his tank. And I knew that he'd feel better if we moved up the table. So I absolutely beasted him and we went as fast as we could go. And by the time he crossed that finish line, he was gone. But we've moved up quite a few places in the league table. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? If you know how long you've got to go, you can pace yourself. If you know what problems you're going to have, you can pace yourself. And we never, ever, ever use up 100% because we've got this thing called, I think it's called the internal governor or something.
Yes.
The central governor.
Yep.
That means, we're trucking along quite nicely, sort of hunting down a gazelle or something. And all of a sudden a lion pops out of the bush. So we've got to leg it faster. So we always have something in our tank. And sports people learn how to overcome that governor and work at the really top level. But I think you've always got to leave something in there for the unexpected. And if you don't know how long your crisis is going to last, well, then you've got to leave a lot more in there. So you can go the next day and the next day and the next day. And when that saber-toothed tiger or that lion jumps out at you, or maybe your Zoom doesn't work, you've got the extra energy to cope with it. So that's my thoughts on life and how to do it. And I think you also need to fill the tank up occasionally. I think it was Lee that mentioned an Aboriginal phrase, travel for 3 days and rest for 1 to let your soul catch up. And I think that's so important. When we're emptying the tank, we've got to fill it up again, whether that's getting it filled up with love, whether that's getting it filled up with, I don't know, good feelings, compliments, whatever it is, we need to keep filling our tank up. And certainly when I used to run Comrades, I used to think of going up the hill as emptying my tank and but filling my tank. I think we need to do that at times, don't we? To do both, empty the tank, fill the tank. That's my thoughts.
Great, thanks, Ed. Yeah, and you need to keep lots of reserves so you can press the reset button on your laptop when your Zoom doesn't work. So a little bit different to running a multi-stage ultra marathon across the desert, but yeah. So yeah, David, I don't know if you know about Ed, but yeah, Ed is an extreme marathon runner. Runs all these crazy long distance multi-day events around the world. So. Yeah, no counting for.
How many continents have you ran on, Ed?
Oh boy.
Not as many as the guy we had on our talk. He'd run on every single continent, but I've run America, Asia, Africa,
Arctic.
Well, there's North, Central, and South America. Which America?
I've done the United States, and I've done Canada, and I've done Central America. I've been in Nicaragua.
Yeah, there you
go. So I want to go. I want to go to South America. There's a race in the desert there. I really want to do Atacama Crossing, and I really want to find something. Although I've been to Asia, I haven't been to India, so I'd like to find something in India.
Very good.
Not anytime soon, you know.
You know, as you were talking, Ed, something came to mind. Here in the States, there is an insurance company that advertises on television. It's for a product, an energy drink. And it is two antelope or two deer standing in the forefront with a hedgerow in the back and a lion peering out of the hedges. And one deer speaks to the other and says, I'm not sure I've got the energy to outrun that. It's too early in the morning. And the guy said, well, you need to drink this product. And he said, really? Does it really give you that much energy? And he said, it gives me all kinds of energy. And he said, I just don't know if I can outrun him. Why do you think that it gives you energy? And he said, I don't need a ton of energy. I just need enough energy to beat you when we run. Yeah.
You don't have to be the slowest person.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just have to. So, I mean, that refreshing and that energy, I think the best rephrasing of the question should be, how do you effectively pace yourself? Because a lot of people waste a lot of time thinking that that's exactly what they're doing, is refreshing and rejuvenating and re-energizing themselves, when actually it's ineffective. They're not spending time, quality time, on doing what the things that the body and the mind absolutely need in order to be refreshed and rejuvenated and restored. And I can tell you, after coaching all these years, that is a theme that runs across a lot of people. You know, they say, I don't have time, to do this. I'll use moms for an example. I've got to get up in the morning, I've got to make the kids breakfast, make sure they're dressed and their teeth is brushed and their books are collected and got them clothed and coated properly and get them out the door and take them to school. Then I come home and I have to do the house cleaning and the laundry and run errands and do this and that. And then it's time to go pick up the kids from school. And then we come home and then they have to grab a quick bite to eat. And then it's time for them to go off to football practice or music or whatever it is. And then I come home and then we got to do up the dishes and make sure they got their homework done and get their bath taken and brush their teeth and get in bed. And at the end of the day, the woman actually feels exhausted. And she said, how do I pace myself? How do I find time to get it all done? And I said, it's priorities. I mean, it all comes down to priorities.
What matters, right?
Well, yeah, that sink full of dishes can wait till tomorrow. They're not going anywhere, or that load of laundry that you think absolutely has to be done today can wait until tomorrow. So you do need to learn how to pace yourself and
And
give
why is it
yourself.
we have all these new time-saving devices that we get, yet people seem to have less time. I mean, you don't have a sink full of dishes because it goes in the dishwasher and it does it for you. You don't have to wash your clothes by hand anymore. It's done in the machine. Oftentimes dinner is cooked in 5 minutes in a microwave or in a special oven of sorts.
But it's the process.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is the process, David. It's the
Some
fact
people don't even shop, they have it delivered. You know?
well, that is true. That's true. That's very true. But it's
Picking up on your, sorry, BJ, picking up
That's
on
right.
your energy drinks thing, I never take them because they just steal your energy from the future. You have one, you feel okay, and then an hour or half an hour later. And I think it's a lot of things, isn't it? They steal your energy from elsewhere.
It's because it's caffeine, most of them, and caffeine is a depressant. It's not a stimulant. So it's a totally misnomer about it. I absolutely never have had one and never will either. So and for major athletes like triathletes or runners or marathoners, that when you take those energy drinks, and because it's a depressant, it actually works opposite of what it's intended to do, because now it affects your cardiac system, and it will not give you anything more. So
Yeah, all very interesting. So the question is, what has it really got to do with pacing? So I think, BJ, you touched on some elements there that it made me think. It's actually comes down to the end of the day to a mindset, doesn't it? It's a question of prioritizing and really looking at, I mean, we've had this discussion on a Wisdom's Chat sometime in the past. I forget which one or when, but about the rocks in the jar. You know the old story about the rocks in the jar, and then the pebbles in the jar, and then the sand in the jar. About getting those priorities right, and that comes down to a mindset and being able to deal with ignoring some of those squeaky wheels. So speaking of squeaky wheels, let's see what Trevor's got to say on the subject of.
good segue. Yeah.
Yeah, he can't oil the enter button too. There you go. He's unmuted himself eventually.
I'm looking at my watch. It didn't say unmute, so I didn't think it was the right time. So look, the topic is pacing, and clearly, I fell into this running of marathons really by default. So I'd never run much further than a 2.2 kilometer in the army before I did my first real marathon, which was Comrades. And I'm trying to remember, in the early days, for some reason, I don't think we needed to qualify. I think there were less than 1,000 or about 1,200 runners, and they actually just wanted the money in for the entrance. So anyone that rocked up at the start could actually run, I seem to remember in my head. And but then later on, I think we got to such a huge crowd of about 1,500 runners that they started imposing conditions on us. And then they turned around and said, no, you've got to qualify with marathons. You've got to run a marathon under, I think they said about 4.5 hours or something like that, before you could actually qualify to do a Comrades. And the strange thing was that I could quite comfortably finish a Comrades. Hated every minute of a standard marathon, just hated it. And that was probably because I don't take instructions well. I'm not into command and control. And if someone tells me you've got to complete this before you can actually do what you want to do, that annoys the hell out of me. So I had to work out how to actually pace these marathons just to actually, the standard marathons are 42 kilometers just to finish. But I must say that just thinking back to pacing, one of these marathons, probably about our third or fourth. My running partner and I, who was also my doozy partner, we ended up just having a lot of fun on the road, and that took away thinking about the pain and having to pace and all this sort of thing. We broke it down into segments and said, well, let's try and finish in around 4 hours or 4 hours, 10 minutes, be comfortable, not do many blisters over 42 kilometers. In fact, that used to end up being a training run. We used to do 42 kilometers to run to a braai. And that would be our sort of comrades type of training. But I do remember we had such a huge amount of fun that we went one year to a Richmond Marathon, which is 42 kilometers outside of Pietermaritzburg. And we arrived there at the start, and there were probably about 150 of us at most at the start of this blooming race. And there on the front line was Alan Robb and Bruce Fordyce standing on the front line. And if anyone knows the history, Alan Robb was obviously the master, and Fordyce was the young student that was going to take his mantle. I think Alan had won it, correct me, Ed, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, probably 3 or 4 times, and Bruce won it about 9 or 10 times. But my mate and I turned around and said, okay, well, here's a giggle. The start is in the middle of Richmond. Why don't we outpace these guys to the boundary of Richmond? So it was, so that boundary, let me tell you, was about 1.5 Ks. And that's what we did. We decided to actually beat Alan Robb and Bruce Fordyce out of Richmond. And that's the story that we live on today, but we don't tell most people that it was only 1.5 Ks to beat them. And then we struggled the next 39 and 9.5 Ks. So that story of pacing, if anyone has never actually paced themselves for life's ups and downs, and you're listening to Ed and his stories of these ultra distance runs, we have a mountain range here in South Africa called the Drakensberg. Now, if you want to know pacing, is try and sprint up a Drakensberg, one of the peaks, and watch how far fast you get to the top by going flat out at the first section. I can guarantee you within a couple of minutes, you're completely gone. And anyone who took Ed's advice and started off slowly and just got themselves breathing will have overtaken you within 5 to 10 minutes, and they will drop you over the next, the remaining 90% of the climb. So try pacing yourself up a mountainside. And that also reminds me of my second comrades. Ed, I told you the story of my first one. I ran so well on doing nothing that I thought I could win it the next year. And then I trained and did 1,000 kilometers of training, but I got flu the day before. It was in the week before. And I was told I shouldn't be running. And I thought, no, I got to run this thing. And I went from Durban to top of Fields Hill, or I was on Fields Hill in about 1 hour and 17 minutes. I always remember that number, which is flying in comrades terms, and especially for someone who's not really a non-runner. But I must say that stupid pace, I hit the wall, as the saying, comrades, and I was unconscious for about 20 minutes. And from there, I walked the remainder of the distance from Fields Hill all the way to Pietermaritzburg, and I came in with 90 seconds to spare, I think. And thereafter, I never ran a serious kilometer again. So that'll upset you. I only ever entered comrades again just to finish it. So I was the master of pacing, and most of my teammates, or rugby mates or polo mates or any sporting mates who actually started comrades, they would always turn around and say, hey, listen, if we want to finish this comrades, you just stick with Trevor Nell. because he's got this thing sussed out. He knows how to finish it and finish it well. That was called pacing. And I suppose that's the topic, Ed. Or who brought that up? BJ. That was your topic, BJ. Pacing yourself through life's challenges. One thing that we all learn from these marathons and ultra marathons and all those sort of things is when you get yourself through these challenges that you put in front of yourself, at the end of them, you know that you can take on anything. There's not much in life that you actually can't take on. And especially when you do it over and over and over again. BJ, you were going to say something.
Well, it just reminds me of a quote that I actually used to use a lot, and I actually forgot about it until just now. I don't know. I think you or Edward are the ones who reminded me of it. But it's by Dr. Stephen Covey, and it says, most of us just spend way too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important. And that has to come with a lot of prioritizing and a lot of pacing yourself. And it's very true. We waste a lot of energy doing things that could better be spent doing something else that is more important than what we feel that drive, that immediacy for. Because like I said, who cares if all your dishes are done at the end of the day? They're still going to be in the darn sink the next morning, so if you got 10 minutes, do up the dishes. It's the same principle. So don't waste your time on things that are urgent, although there are moments when urgency does require your immediate attention, but don't make your life full of urgency. Make your life full of what's important. And that kind of comes out. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, BJ. Ed, you wanted to add something in there?
Yeah, just while Trevor was talking, it reminded me that in Comrades, they have buses, which are pacing groups. And the idea is if you want to run Comrades in 9 hours, you join the 9-hour group. You want to do it in 11 hours, you join the 11-hour group. And a bit like Trevor, my last 3 or 4 Comrades, I just decided to finish. I didn't want to do anything else than just cross the finish line. I was just out there to have fun and drink beer. And I was trotting along one time and the 11-hour bus came past me. And I thought, he's going at the wrong pace. That is too fast. And I didn't worry about it. I just kept going. And do you know what? Most people fell off his bus and didn't get over the line in 11 hours because he'd taken them out too fast. Yeah. I crossed, I think, in 10 hours, 50 minutes, which was 10 minutes inside the cutoff. So that pacing was absolutely vital. And he didn't do his job right because he went out, like Trevor said, too fast early on. And he just destroyed the people. So I think it is that thing. You must go at the right pace for the circumstances.
And you use a critical word, if I can just add this, you use the word fun. I like to throw in the word happy or happiness. That if you're not having fun or you're not happy with what you're doing, it doesn't matter what pace you actually run at. If you are totally dissatisfied or you not enjoying what you're actually doing, for instance, the dishes, you must either be happy about doing them, or if you're not happy with doing them, then you must become a Greek and just throw them on the floor and trample them all over the place. But fun and happiness, I think, are critical to play a great part in pacing the way you want to actually tackle an objective. And I suppose that's what these marathons and ultra marathons, they're just objectives in a life that has ups and downs. You've got to have fun doing them.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Right, David, do you want to add in any thoughts into the pacing discussion here?
I think the biggest thing about pacing is that the correct pace varies depending on the person, depending on our personality. One of my big loves in life has always been hiking in the mountains. I've done a lot of day hikes. I've done some long distance hiking. The longest being in 2006 when I hiked end to end, south to north, the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, which is about 2,200 miles in length. And when I started that, I was, thank you, I was trying to keep up with people who are, they were doing 20+ mile days regularly, and I wasn't having all that much fun. And then somewhere in northern Georgia, I think it was, there was this retired couple from Vermont who told me, I think the guy told me that if you just do 12 miles a day, you can finish the trail in 6 months. So I thought about it, and I slowed down and went on my own pace and let people go by me. And I was having a whole lot more fun when I was, stopping where I want, relaxing when I wanted. And you can, if you hike from say 8 in the morning until 5 in the evening with an hour with a break for lunch and breaks along the way, you still get to where you want to go. So the real lesson in life is not reaching a certain pace, but it's maintaining a pace. Whatever pace is comfortable for you, if you can maintain it, then one foot in front of the other, you'll get to wherever you're going. There's a saying that every place is in walking distance if you've got the time to get there.
Yeah.
Those are my beliefs on pacing.
The Appalachian
thanks.
Trail's on my to-do list, so I'm really envious of you.
It's a heck of an experience. It's overcrowded in the southern end, but as people drop off, by the time you get to Virginia northward, it's a lot less crowded. And in Maine is like a wild scenery that you don't have in Europe. It's really impressive. But it's very rugged and very challenging. 3/4 of the people who start out with the intention of hiking all the way don't make it. Well, about 25% make it all the way. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that we won't get into now. But my point is pacing is individual, and everybody has a pace that's right for them.
Yeah, the question that comes to mind from that, and I do agree, if you're taking on a challenge like that, obviously the key is to understand your abilities and your limitations. I think, but the question that actually comes to mind for me there is, when are the times that you actually need to accelerate your pace? And I'm thinking,
Happens in the work environment usually.
well, that's sort of where I was heading. I mean, you can be sitting in a situation where your pacing just simply doesn't suit what's going on around you, or the demands of an environment that you happen to be in. So I mean,
then you could be in the wrong job, quite simply.
You could be in the wrong job, you could be in the wrong place, or you just have the wrong mindsets. And it comes back to what Trevor was saying about happiness and fun. If you're in a situation where you feel the pace is just really stressing you out rather than carrying you along, then perhaps it is time for a change. But I mean, that brings up another thought, and that's the thought of quitting. I mean, it's when is it too easy to quit? Yeah, well, if you're getting pushed along, it's some people just say, well, I'm out of here. It just doesn't suit me. But do you actually then achieve anything? And I mean, you talked about it, David. 25% of the people who've said, I want to do this amazing hike, only make it. The 75% quit. And is that a symptom of an expectation which was unrealistic to start with, or just an attitude of not being prepared to push through, and think of what the amazing stuff that they missed by not finishing.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, it's for me, it's an interesting topic, and I know we've spoken a lot about running and marathons and hiking and things about that, like that. But I think it applies to all sorts of different areas of life.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not a runner. I've never run more than maybe 50 to 100 yards without slowing down.
Well, you've walked a hell of a long way, so
I walk. I don't run.
But as you said, if you've got the time, you'll still get to the destination. So and possibly in better shape than if you tried to run it.
Well, it also, I mean, another good example, and I've used this a couple of times. Sorry, guys. Okay, I get it. It's very much likened to the mountain climber, to the extreme hike up the mountain, because you have to definitely pace yourself, and you have to effectively pace yourself, because nobody ever starts at base and makes it to the summit in one giant leap. You have to go to the next level, rehydrate, refresh, rejuvenate, rest. And again, and I'm sure it's similar in marathon running. As you get closer to the goal, your oxygen is depleted. You're depending more and more on your lung capacity, and the lactose in your legs start giving a problem, and you're creating all kinds, maybe blisters on the feet, or your knees start hurting. And yes, I know some of those extreme athletes are conditioned, and that they may not have some of those problems or know how to work around them as they're running, but nobody ever gets that. And I know in the Boston Marathon, but I'm not familiar with some of the other global marathons. In the Boston Marathon, they offer hydration stations. They have people standing around with bottles of water and things for people. Do they also do that during the other type of marathons? See, again, you got to pace yourself, you got to hydrate, you got to replenish, you got to do all of that. And whoever made that, and I think it was Edward, whoever made that analogy, that if you spend it all in the very beginning, it's just like fuel or petrol in a vehicle. If you speed and waste it all right now, you're not going to make your distance and your goal, because you've consumed so much in the beginning. So a lot of analogies that can be made there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we've paced ourselves right past the bottom of the hour. So yeah, another interesting discussion. Thanks, folks. And yeah, thoughts for a topic for next week. Any suggestions? Anything that might have been sparked out of today's discussion?
Well, let's see here.
I was wondering whether we don't pick up this. Okay, Trevor, go for it.
Yeah, just it was David who actually brought up the Appalachian Mountains. What other unique experiences can there be in the US? Because this is Wisdom's US. Maybe a little bit of homework pointing us to unique experiences where we can, and I wrote there just based on what BJ said, you learn what pace you can handle by pushing yourself. So what unique experience in the US could any of people listening to this actually learn from by participating in and pushing themselves?
What kind of experience are you thinking of? Travel, sports?
Anything absolutely crazy. I mean, there are mad individuals.
Do most anything.
Yeah, they jump on
Yeah.
horseback or steers and do silly rodeo type things.
Yeah, that would be a good topic, Trevor. That's an excellent suggestion. We can do that. What kind of experiences, are available here in the States? That's good.
Get on a Harley Davidson and do Route 66. How many potholes are there? Or what, does it still work? Or they eat them?
You can get on a train for 2.5 days from coast to coast. That's kind of unique.
I used to live on Route 66. I can tell you some of the amazing things that are there. So that's cool.
All right.
Can't wait. Next Wednesday.
Excellent. We'll do some vicarious virtual exploring next week. So yeah, other than that, thanks folks. Have a great week further, and if we don't see you before then,
I do want to ask permission, but I know it's okay. These are always available on YouTube on the Wisdom's Chat 123 page. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So are they available to be shared?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then I will start following on Wednesdays. It may not be this particular recording, but it will be other recordings that we do experience here in Wisdoms.
Yeah.
And I will be posting them both on LinkedIn and on my Facebook page to see if we can get more people coming in and engaging.
That'd be fantastic, Vijay. Yeah, let me pop. I'm just going to pop into the chat box very quickly for you guys, if you haven't got them already. Some links. So those are the 4 sort of key links. So we've got the chats from South Africa, UK, and USA on the chats one. We've got snippets, which are just short, sort of a couple of minute snippets of wisdom, as we like to call them, where we've taken out elements from discussions or had short presentations and so on. We've got interviews with authors, which are things that Lee's been doing, interviewing authors about their books and interesting things like that. And then we've got the summits. And as you know, we've done a number of different summits. So all the sessions from the different summits that we've done are up on that channel as well. So, and all of it can be shared. And yeah, we'd appreciate people liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel. And that helps every little bit as well. So yeah, please feel free to pass the ones around that you find interesting and you think others might find interesting, and invite them to join and share and like and participate as well.
Absolutely. These are invaluable, and it's not, I mean, you do gain knowledge and awareness, but it's also the engagement and understanding from other people's perspective that opens up the world to others, because we're, we come, my gosh, we got South Africa and we've got the UK and we've got the US right here. We've had people from France on here. We've had people from Australia on here. Just, these are amazing conversations. What better way to start out a day for here in the States? What better way? And Ivan does these 5 days a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And he's truly global hopping on these conversations. So I am a big, big advocate of these wisdoms chats. And I really encourage everybody to come aboard and come along. They're free, for the love of heaven, they're free.
You already paid for it.
No, I mean, there's
No, you don't have to be a member of anything.
Oh, you
to join
don't?
these days.
No. No, they're absolutely free. So
Just very quickly, I don't want to hold you guys up, but I find it amazing that sports people train their bodies to compete, but business people competing in the marketplace don't train their minds, which is exactly what the wisdoms chats do. It trains the mind.
amen, Edward. Amen. And in fact, I'm so happy you said that. I am going to use that, or a paraphrase of it, on a post I'm about to make today.
Good steal.
Yeah.
I'll send you an invoice later.
Yeah, please. That's well worth the couple of pounds that you'll charge, right? Couple of pounds, not much, right? Yeah.